My special guest today is the woman who made headlines around the world in March 2005. She was held hostage in her apartment by the suspect in the Atlanta courthouse slayings. Ashley Smith has said that her faith in God was the only thing that allowed her to face a quadruple murder suspect that night and helped her with her lifelong battle for drugs. Let's take a look at this.
It was just a normal day for me. I came home and walked to the front door, and as I walked to the front door, I actually heard somebody coming up behind me. And when I turned around, there he was right behind me with the gun pointed right in my face. He said, "Do you know who I am?" And I was like, "No." And he took his hat off. He said, "Now do you know who I am?" And when he took off his hat, I knew and saw that it was Brian Nichols. I just knew that I was going to die. I had to remember what the news had said.
The fatal shooting of a Fulton County Superior Court judge
had already allegedly killed 3 people, and so now he was in my apartment. And there was no doubt in my mind that I was not going to make it out of there alive. He went to walk around the house, and I could hear him kind of looking around in drawers and stuff, just really looking around the house, walking all around the house. And he came back and he had some tape, an extension cord, and a curtain. I thought really when I saw the curtain or the extension cord, they were just going to wrap around my neck and strangle me. I thought I was never ever going to see my little girl again. And that was the worst thing to me, of knowing I was going to die and not ever get to see her again. I guess I actually felt like I deserved to die. Just the things that I did in my life, and why was God going to save me now? We just talked after that. I mean, just several things came up about how many times I've tried rehab, to my drug addiction, to my family and his family, and I told him about my husband dying and how he died in my arms. After that happened, I didn't feel like I had much to live for, not even my little girl. I didn't know how to raise her on my own, so I was scared to do it, and I just covered everything up, the fear and the pain, I guess, of losing him, and the fear of doing things by myself with drugs. I went and grabbed my Purpose-Driven Life and asked him if I could read, and he asked me to read it out loud to him, and that is where he told me that he believed in God too, and I knew pretty much at that point that I wasn't in control anymore, and neither was he, but God was in control of the whole situation, and that was kind of a good thing for me, because me being in control of my life up until that point was a terrible situation.
Now please join me in welcoming Ashley Smith. Welcome to Helpline, and God richly bless you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
What an incredible story.
Thank you.
And I think that when I hear what God has done for you in your life, it makes me to realize that nothing in life happens by accident.
Not at all.
But that God began to work in your life long before this experience happened.
Definitely.
Tell us about it.
Well, I accepted Jesus as my Savior when I was 7 years old, and I lived a pretty good life up until high school and got off on the wrong track with the wrong friends. And after my husband died, I should have turned back to God, but it was easier for me to turn to drugs to hide the pain, and that's what I did.
And a lot of that was because of the way your husband died.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Well, my husband and I we tried to be good parents during the week, but we went out and partied on the weekends. And during one of those weekends when we went out, he ran into some old friends of his, and they got into an argument, and he got stabbed in the heart, and he died in my arms.
He died in your arms?
In my arms, yes.
And that was enough of an experience to cause you to feel how?
Well, especially since I'd already dabbled in drugs before and lived a little bit of that lifestyle, it was just easier for me to cover up the pain and the fear of raising Paige by myself, my daughter, or just being by myself at all. My husband was everything to me. He was my provider, my best friend, Paige's father. I mean, he was everything. And when he was taken away, I felt like I had nothing else to live for.
Tell us about that incredible night.
Well, that night,
March 2005.
that night I'd actually gone out to the store, and when I returned, I saw the same truck that I'd seen before I left.
It was quite late in the middle of the night.
It was. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was moving into a new apartment, and I was supposed to see my little girl the next day. At this time, my drug addiction had gotten so bad that my aunt had taken custody of her so I could get help for myself. And so Paige was not there that night. And I had gone out to the store, and when I returned...
And you went out to the store to get some cigarettes.
I did. I went to get cigarettes. And when I returned, he came and forced me into the apartment.
When you went out to the store, you saw this truck?
I saw a truck pulling up, and I really didn't think much about it at first because, you know, in Atlanta, people come home at 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday night all the time. Yeah. But when I returned was when I got a little worried because the same truck was parked closer to my apartment door, and there was still somebody sitting in the truck. So I began to worry a little bit, but thought, I don't have many friends here in Atlanta, and maybe I'm just being paranoid. I should just go in my house and everything's going to be okay.
Did you know anything about the quadruple murder?
I did, but the thought never crossed my mind that that could possibly be that man. I really had so many other things in my mind at the time. I was trying to move into the apartment by myself. Literally, I didn't really have any help of anybody. I moved all my furniture by myself in my small car. I had a car way down, and it was a terrible situation. Yeah. But no one wanted to be around me, really. Yeah. In the situation that I was in. So I didn't think about that. Even when I turned around and saw him with a gun pointed right at me, the thought of it being him never crossed my mind.
Before you got into the apartment?
No, it didn't.
He came out of the truck and forced you into the apartment?
Yes, as soon as I unlocked my door and was about to walk in, I turned around and he was right behind me with a gun pointed at my face. And really, I didn't know it was him. I thought, the first thing I thought was, uh-oh, God is really sick and tired of the way I've been living my life. This is who he sent to take me home. Now, when we're going to talk about prayer, my aunt had told me about 3 weeks prior to this event happening, she said, honey, I prayed a prayer for you, and it said, God, if Ashley's not going to turn her life and her drug addiction over to you, please take her home. So turning around, looking at that gun pointed at my face, I'm like, you crazy woman. God really listened to your prayer, and now I'm going home. But, you know, God had other plans, so.
But you can see all through this, Ashley, that there's a hand behind these circumstances.
Yes.
It's bringing you to the place where you can find complete victory for your life.
That's right.
And that night, was he abusive? Was he?
No, he wasn't at all. He was he was pretty much respectful. I mean, he took a shower, and before he took a shower, he placed a towel over my head so I didn't have to watch him take a shower. I had drugs in my apartment that night, and that really was the turning point for my life. Was he asked me for marijuana, and I didn't have that. I had ice in my house, and before I could think about what I was saying, I told him that I had it in the house, and immediately I was like, oh my goodness, I can't give him that. But it was too late. So when he got out of the shower, he asked for it, and he asked me if I was going to do it with him. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, I recognize that as God saying, you know what, you're my child, and I may not allow you out of this house. I may bring you home tonight, but I'm going to give you one more chance to say no to something that has taken control of your life. And I recognized it as that and said, okay, I can say no now. And if you allow me to live out of here, you know, and go on with my life, fine. But if not, at least I'll be going to heaven with him giving me a round of applause going, way to go. You finally said no, and I'm proud of you.
You kept saying to him something very important. I have a little baby, a girl.
A little girl.
And I've got to get to see her. And then he started to tell you about his life, didn't he?
He did. I asked him about his life.
Because he had a very difficult life.
Yes.
And that difficult life probably led him to do a lot of the things that he found himself out of control doing.
It may have. He said that he was facing spiritual warfare at the time, and I definitely knew something about what spiritual warfare was with my drug addiction.
He had a child.
He said he had a child, yes.
And his wife accused him of, or was it his wife or girlfriend?
Had accused him of rape, and he said that he didn't do that, yes.
And he was convicted of that?
I don't know if he was convicted. That's what he was on trial when he escaped. So.
And so with all of this emotional experience going on in his life and this emotional experience going on in your life, the two of you find yourself together. He gives you permission to leave the house.
Yes, he did.
I mean, that has to be an incredible miracle.
Definitely.
You started to talk to him from a book, I understand?
Well, after I chose not to do the drugs, I kind of felt God's arms just wrap around me and say, "It's okay, I'm here." And I'm like, "Okay, I feel you."
Now,
Definitely.
Did you actually have these sensitivities?
For sure. Yes, definitely. I mean, I could immediately when I said no to the drugs, I could feel the presence of Jesus in the house the entire night. And I really believe
Isn't that amazing?
I sometimes
just that quick.
Yes.
In other words, that's what the Lord will do for us if we'll surrender to him. It won't take a long time.
No.
It'll be just that quick that he'll come and meet us at the point of our need.
That's right.
And so he let you go.
He did let me leave, yes.
And what did you do when he let you go?
Well, I immediately looked up at the heavens and said, "Thank you, God, for hearing my prayers." And I began to pray that no one else get hurt once I left, that everybody else that was involved in the situation, because I knew I was going to call the police and something else could happen. And I just prayed that nothing else happened. So I immediately called the police and they came, and thus began my whirlwind of a life. But about an hour after I called the police, he came out peacefully, surrendered, and I just said, "You know, God, sometimes you don't answer quickly, but you sure answered this one quickly," because he came out and just surrendered peacefully with no other bloodshed.
You know, we wanted to get Rick Warren here, the author of The Purpose-Driven Life, and he's in service tonight, having meeting in his church, but he sends special greetings to you.
Thank you.
He said he wants you to know that he's praying for you and that he's praying that God's perfect will be done in your life. You got the most amazing book. Mrs. Cerullo couldn't put this book down.
Well,
Unlikely Angel.
Thank you.
Are you that unlikely angel?
Well, I'm a little uncomfortable with the whole angel situation, but I believe that God, I can accept that God chose me for a job that he wanted done. And you know, out of the millions of people in Atlanta that he could have chosen, he chose somebody like me that was struggling. Just because I was willing to say, "Okay, I'm going to completely surrender everything, even the ugly part of me."
Was that the night that you also got completely delivered from drugs, or was it a process?
It was not a process for me. I was completely delivered that night. I have not gone back to that lifestyle and do not want to go back to that lifestyle and have fought against it.
So, you know the God that not only forgives sins and changes lives,
Yes, sir.
but you know the power of his deliverance.
Yes, sir.
You know, there's so many people. See all those phones over there just ringing off the hook, so to speak? You know, there's so many out there that are struggling with drugs and struggling with incredible circumstances in their lives.
Yes.
What would you say to them?
You know, it's never ever too late to turn your life around. My family literally prayed for 4 years, and I believe with all my heart they prayed me out of that drug addiction. It took some time, but they prayed me out of it, and just completely.
So prayer changes
definitely.
things. Prayer
and still,
works.
Everything I do today, people say, "I'm praying for you," and I'm like, you know, I can feel your prayers now. Now that I'm surrendered to Jesus, I can totally feel your prayers.
How can our dear friends get your book? Everyone should get this book. Unlikely Angel. It's fabulous.
They can go to ashleyonline.net. I think it's in all the bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Zondervan.com, any of them they can, or whatever.
Ashley, we rejoice together with you tonight.
Thank you.
For this incredible, inspiring experience. It's experiences like this that make us to know that God is relevant at the point of every human need.
Yes, thank you.
Would you like to take a few phone calls with us tonight?
Sure.
And maybe somebody out there you can pray with that has a drug addiction.
Okay.
And you can ask the Lord to do for them what he did for you.
All right.
We love you with all of our hearts, and God bless you.
Thank you.